Hey, what's up, Nerdyverse? I'm Daddy Louie, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you all of the paint colors that you need to be using to paint your Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for Heroes of the Grid. So stick around. Before we get started, if you're new to our channel and you would like to see more content like this, then start now by hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. The Heroes of the Grid Facebook group is a great location for people to drop pictures of the miniatures that they've just painted, as well as ask questions and stuff like that. But one of the most common questions that I see on that Facebook group, especially when somebody posts a picture of something that they painted, is, "Oh my god, that looks so great, what paints did you use?" Or, that looks amazing, what colors are you using? So what I thought I would do as a companion to the video that I made painting up the Blue Ranger is I thought that I would go over all of the paint colors that I use to paint all of my Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So you take the video of me painting up Billy, the Blue Ranger, combine that technique with the paint colors that I'm going to show you today, and you should have no problems getting through and painting all 7 of your Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, plus Jason with the dragon shield. So if you'll join me on the table, we'll get started. One of the most important things about how I paint these Power Rangers is the color that I prime them in. So my recommendation to you is to paint all of them, or prime all of them rather, with a white or a flat white. You can use any primer that you want. I use Rust-Oleum's flat white primer just because it's cheap and it still does a good job. If you haven't seen my other video about different tips on how to paint, I cover primers and stuff like that, so I'll link that for you guys to check it out. But it's very important that you prime with white because it's going to make the white parts of the Rangers much easier to paint and highlight back up. White is a very difficult color to use, so definitely start with a white primer even on the Black Ranger. Alright, so before we get into the specific individual Rangers, there are a few colors that we use for all of the Rangers, regardless of their color. And that's what you see on screen now. So for all of the black bits, which there aren't many, but for all the, except for on the Black Ranger, obviously. For all the black bits, we're just going to use black. I personally like Vallejo Model Color Black, but you could use Abaddon Black from Citadel. You could use black from Army Painter. It honestly doesn't matter. Most black paints are pretty much the same. Like I said, I like Vallejo's black. Mephiston Red is a great red, and that's going to be for the Morphers. So if you see here on, I'll show you, that's not a good one. Let's look at Kimberly. If you look at Kimberly here, you can see there's a small red outline around the power coin there on the Morpher, and that is with Mephiston Red. So they all have, except for Tommy the White Ranger, they all have a Morpher on their belt, and if you want them to look uniform, that's a great color for it. Ulthuan Gray is basically your white. It's the white that you're going to use highlight back up after you've shaded the model. So again, here looking at Kimberly, all of this white that you see here on her bow, on her helmet, her belt, boots, her gloves, that's all done with Ulthuan Gray. For all of your silver bits, Lead Belcher with a highlight of Storm Silver. So if you see here, like on Billy, for example, his blades, this is just Lead Belcher, Nuln Oil, and then you can see a little line there, kind of that Storm Host Silver, just to brighten it up. And the same goes for like the face mask and all of your other silvery bits. Retributor armor. The only thing that you need for the 5 main Power Rangers, that for again is the power coin in the middle, but this is also the color that you're going to use for the dragon shield. on those that wear the dragon shield. So this here on Tommy the Green Ranger, this is Retributor Armor Gold as well. So great color to have across the board. And then of course, Nuln Oil. Nuln Oil you're going to use to wash the whole entire model. When you watch the Billy video, you'll see I cover the whole model just so that it gets full depth and all the recesses, and I use that across the board for all of the Ranger. Alright, so the first Ranger that we'll talk about is Billy, the Blue Ranger. I started with McCrag Blue, the darker blue, and then I did a final highlight of Altdorf Guard Blue, and this is a great blue to finish him off with, and I really was very happy with the color that he ended up being. Other than that, it's all the same steps and colors that were shown previously. I used gold in that bit there around his, on the inside of his staff, and outside of that, it's just these two blues. Alright, for Kimberly, the only color that we used was Pink Horror. I did a base coat, all the colors using Pink Horror for all the pink bits, and then after the Nuln Oil, I just re-highlighted back up with the Pink Horror. I really love the way that that color looks, and I didn't feel the need to use anything else. Kind of the same mindset here with Trini and Aisha, Yellow Ranger. I used Everland Sunset, and honestly I was really happy with the shade of yellow that she turned out with, so I just kept the Everland Sunset. I didn't go any shades higher than that. Plus, on top of that, yellow is kind of a difficult color to work with, so sticking with just the one shade made it much easier for me. With the Red Ranger, it was Mephiston Red all the way. I didn't need any other color reds. Honestly, in my opinion, Mephiston Red is probably the best red paint on the market right now for models like this. It's just a great color. It doesn't really need a whole lot of other colors to highlight it. It just highlights really well, very smooth. So it's just straight Mephiston Red for my Red Rangers. The Black Ranger is kind of where things change a little bit. You can't really tell from the screen here, but he really does have some nice highlights on him, and it was actually pretty easy to do. So starting with that base color primer of the flat white allowed me to not have to worry so much about painting white over black, which is something that I would have had to have done if I had primed him black. I primed him white, which made all the white bits much easier. And then rather than using a base coat of black, I actually didn't use black at all. What I did was I used German Gray, which is a just a shade lighter than, you know, straight black. And then with the Nuln Oil wash over top of it, I was able to highlight back with German Gray to create some really nice definition in, especially like on his abs and around the cracks around the backs of his legs and stuff like that. So this is one of my favorite colors on the market as well. And for Zach and Adam, the Black Ranger, it was really useful. And then for the blade on his axe, there is some yellow bits, and for that I used Everland Sunset again. That way I didn't have to change up my colors too much. For Green Ranger Tommy, like I said earlier in the video, for his Dragon Shield I used Retributor Armor, and you're actually going to want to wash this with Reichland Flesh Shade, which is a pretty common shade, and it makes it, it really just adds a lot of color to that gold, and then you can highlight it back up with Retributor Armor, and it really pops and it looks really nice. And for the green, the dark green, I started with Viper Green from Reaper, and then I highlighted with War Boss Green from Citadel. Now, a little disclaimer, I'll be honest, if I had access to Warpstone Glow, if I had that in my collection, which is a Citadel color, I probably wouldn't have used the Viper Green. Would have started with War Boss and then used Warpstone Glow for the highlights. Unfortunately, I don't have that color, and I don't have a local game store nearby, and I really wanted to paint him up, so I ended up doing it like this. But if you have Warpstone Glow, I would do it that way. I would do War Boss Green first, and then Warpstone Glow. I will probably try and get my hands on Warpstone Glow soon. That way I can paint up Evil Tommy, slightly different shade anyway. And I'll make a video so that you can see the color difference as well as how to paint up that dragon shield. Last but certainly not least is Tommy the White Ranger. And honestly, he was probably the easiest one to paint out of all of them. So again, I did that flat white primer, and then I painted up all of the black bits on his chest, around his ankles and wrists, and in his visor, and then painted up the Retributor armor for all the gold bits. And then I washed the entire model with Nuln Oil shade, with the exception of the gold bits, which I used the Reglin Flesh shade, let it dry. And then I just put some Retributor armor on the highlights for the gold, and then some Ulthuan Gray on the highlights for the white. And he turned out great. He looks just like this. So definitely probably the easiest Ranger to paint. A lot of that also had to do with the fact that he didn't have the diamonds like, you know, like the other Rangers. You didn't have to worry about those highlights in there. Alright guys, so that's it. All of the colors that you need in order to paint your Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for Heroes of the Grid. So if you take this information that I just gave you, combine it with the Billy video that I made, which I will link one more time for you guys right now, and you'll have everything that you need in order to paint up your 8 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, if you include Jason with the Dragon Shield. If you guys enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps us out. We really appreciate it. Make sure that you share it with your friends. If you have any suggestions on any videos you'd like to see in the future, or if you have any videos you would like featured on our page, just hit us up on one of our social media platforms, because we would love to hear from you. Anyway guys, that's all from me. I'll see you in the next video.